What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. Also, in this video, we're going to be having a trivia question, and if you can guess the answer to the trivia question, you could win cash directly from me. Yeah, so make sure to watch this video all the way to the end, and you could win money directly from me if you guess the answer. So that'll happen in this video. It's getting crazy here as the Fed announced they're raising interest rates here yet again and actually sent the stock market dropped over 800 points. Dow tumbles more than 800 points as investors fear the Fed is tipping the economy into a recession or a deeper recession than a lot of people. Most people think that the economy is already into a recession. And the Fed said that they're going to continue raising interest rates into 2023. And yeah, the stock market didn't like that. And people are just seeing their 401ks, IRAs, and pensions just crumble away here, and not looking good for people's credit card interest rates either, as those are going to continue to go up. Mortgage rates continue to go up. Car loans, personal loans, any type of anybody borrowing anything, any type of money, interest rates going up here yet again. And this is continuing to put a hamper on the economy and everything having to do with interest. And yeah. Wharton professor Jeremy Siegel says to stop the madness. This is getting out of control. And honestly, I think that most Americans think this is too much. This is just too much. They've raised interest rates enough, and this has got to stop. Here's what he has to say. Take a listen.
Let's talk through, because you have been very vocal for a long time that you think the Fed is doing too much, that they were slow to get started on this, but now they have taken things too far. Jay Powell made it pretty clear yesterday that he has no intention of letting up at this point, that they think inflation is still rampant, it is still going to be very hard to get rid of. And as a result, their plan is to go higher and stay there longer. You're not buying it? You don't think that they will be able to do that in the second half of next year? They're going to have to lower rates?
No, not at all. And, as Joe pointed out at the very beginning, in the year ago meeting, only two people thought that the funds rate should be above 1% this month. It's interesting. Only two people thought that the funds rate next December should be below 5%. I think that they're going to be exactly wrong in the opposite direction. They were way too loose before. Funds rate had to rise a lot, and now they're way too tight. And Becca, I was really very disappointed in Powell in his reasoning and his justifications for this overly tight policy. First of all, he acknowledged that the housing data is lagged, that housing prices are actually going down, but we're not going to see it until the middle of next year. So we're going to wait until the middle of next year before we, decide whether we need to pause the rate hikes. But even though we know it right today, I think we've got to get out of this, year over year look at inflation. Remember, when we get year over year, we're getting 11 months of old data, outdated data, only 1 month of new data. Yeah. And in fact, that 1 month contains data that he admits, particularly in the housing sector, is extremely lagged.
Sure, but Jeremy, I'm sure you'd be the first to admit that we can't look at every number and think, inflation has been conquered. If you look at 1 month's number, 1 month does not a trend make. That's why you look at the longer year over year. And you're right. It came down year over year because you're rolling off some of the highest numbers. But, we looked at year over year on the way up when things were really hot, too.
But the Fed has to be forward-looking. Let's go to the wage part, because I think that's really interesting. They said, okay, so we have this housing, but wages is a problem. First of all, wages have gone up less than inflation. I mean, Steve mentioned that last month was one of the very few months where wages actually ticked a bit above inflation. But over this whole pandemic period, wages have fallen short of inflation. It's hard to understand that that is an inflationary force. But more important, he brought it up something new. He said there may be a structural shift of a reduction in labor supply. Well, what does economics say? If there's something that is a reduction in supply, you've got to let its price rise. I mean, that's economics 101. You can't suppress structural shifts. The Fed is not supposed to act on structural shifts on supply side problems. Remember, Becky, a year and a half ago, Chairman Powell said, "Oh, we're not going to act against inflation because there's supply side problems." Now he's saying, oh, there's supply side problems in the labor market that may raise wages, and we have to crush the wages in order to stop inflation. I mean, they're totally inconsistent as a part of monetary policy.
Yeah, so you heard him there that wages have not increased as much as inflation. Yeah, that's terrible, for lack of a better word. Not a good sign, and yet the Fed keeps voting to raise inflation again and again and again. And they're predicting to continue to raise interest rates throughout all of 2023 multiple times next year. Now, this is just what they're predicting. A lot. Obviously, they change their minds all the time, and they're wrong a lot of times as well. We'll see what happens in 2023, but it ain't looking good. It ain't looking good, folks. And we've seen mortgage rates more than double in 2022. We went from less than 3% to now 7%, taking the average mortgage rate, adding $1,000 a month or more to a home mortgage. So if you went to buy the exact same home here at the beginning of 2022, you would have been able to get that home for less than $1,000 less per month in interest. Now, that same home, if you went to buy that exact same home, it would cost you $1,000 or more per month, every single month, just in interest to buy that exact same home. I mean, of course, you have to do the math, and each home's different. It depends on where you live, all this stuff, right? But that's the difference between a 2.85% interest rate and a 7% interest rate. It's crazy. It's crazy. Remember that the average credit card interest rate right now is around 20%. The highest credit card interest rates, if you have bad credit and you have one of the worst credit cards out there, 35, 36%. And remember, we just seen interest rates raised again by 0.5%. And they're saying in 2023, they're going to continue raising rates multiple times next year as well. So this affects everything. Rates on car loans, used car loans, new car loans, car leases, home mortgages, credit cards, personal loans, RVs, anything you would go to borrow money on, this affects the rate on it. So let me know your thoughts here, because it ain't looking good. And remember, we do know that rates can go much, much higher. We looked at back in the 80s, early 80s, end of the 70s there. Let me know your thoughts, or let me know your in the comments here what the highest interest rate you had of a home mortgage was. I want to hear some comments here, because I know some people are going to say they had home mortgages. Their mortgage rate was double or more what it is now. And that's with the 7% range now. We're going to see some comments of people saying that they had mortgages more than double what they are right now. So comment down below on what the highest mortgage rate you ever had in your lifetime was. So the interest rates can go way higher than they are now, guys. I know it's kind of like, it sounds like the sky is falling right now, but it can be much, much worse. And this has happened in people's lifetimes. Not quite in my lifetime. I was born in 1981, so I will be 42 years old here in a few months. But it's definitely happened in some people's lifetime. You'll see in the comments there. So let me know in the comment section below. Hopefully we don't get that bad, but we'll see. Okay, next up, the Senate passes a bill that would ban TikTok on government devices. Senator Josh Hawley calls TikTok a Trojan horse for the CCP, China. And remember that former President Donald Trump was considering banning TikTok completely for all of America. And they're considering this again as well, Congress banning TikTok completely. Here's what the Senate has to say here. Take a listen.
The Senate unanimously passed a bill last night that would ban TikTok on all government devices. The vote comes amid fears that the app, which is owned by a Chinese company, collects data from users that Beijing could use for spying purposes. According to lawmakers, the bill would protect Americans by blocking all transactions from any social media company in or under the influence of China, Russia, and several other foreign countries of concern. Last month, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the app presents legitimate national security concerns to the U.S., and several states have taken steps to prohibit the use of TikTok on government devices. TikTok has denied turning over any U.S. data to Chinese officials, but acknowledged that Chinese employees have some access to it. The bill still needs approval from the House and President Biden's signature to become law.
Let's bring right now the Democratic Majority Whip, Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois. He's chairman of the Judiciary Committee. TikTok now, Mr. Chairman, obviously one of the most popular social media sites in America and across the world. Talk about your concerns about it. Should we tell our children and everybody that we know to take TikTok off of their devices?
I would. Maybe America has finally reached the point where we realize that our innermost secrets, privacy, security are at stake here. It's not just a matter of some commercial operation coming up with information they use to make a buck, but it's a question of whether China, which is very invasive in its own country, is going to be able to do the same thing in ours.
That is a piece of advice. Go ahead, Willie.
Yeah, by the way, that's something echoed yesterday by Chris Krebs, the former cybersecurity administrator, said the same thing about TikTok. So something to keep an eye on. Senator, let me ask you about the government shutdown. The Wednesday, a short-term funding bill was passed. Is the government going to be open a week from now, 2 weeks from now?
I'm hoping so. We're on a path to do that. There's some elements that still are unresolved, but they're not at the highest level. We've kind of agreed on the big numbers, and we're tracking them into the individual appropriation bills. So we'll leave today, and we have to leave because this bill is going to take some time to put together. And I'm hoping early next week we'll be able to pass on a bipartisan basis the budget for the remainder of the fiscal year. But warning, rough seas ahead. The incoming leadership in the House has suggested that it's going to be an era of confrontation and government shutdown. That is not good for this country, its economy, or the people who live here. I hope that they reconsider that as time passes.
Senator Durbin, good morning. And Jonathan Lemire. It's still being negotiated, but I was hoping you could give us an update on the status of two things that would be in this bill. One, funding to Ukraine, and secondly, the Electoral Count Act that need to reform the process that the Trump administration tried to take advantage of on January 6th. Where do things stand with those two?
Well, nothing's final until it is final around here, and I've been around enough budget processes to see predictions falter. But I think both of those elements are going to be included in the bill, and they should be. We need to stand by the Ukrainians on a bipartisan basis. Some of the dissenters among the House Republicans don't reflect what many Republicans in the Senate feel, and I think we've got enough force of presence in terms of the Ukrainian war to fund that. So there's a positive feeling moving forward.
Can you just talk for a second? Because you brought something up, and I do think it's remarkable that Republicans a large number of Republicans have made it their singular focus through the years to overturn Roe v. Wade, despite the fact that in one poll after another, you can go back decades, only like a third of Americans ever wanted it overturned, and well over 60%, sometimes up into the 70s, did not want it overturned. Isn't it ironic that the very thing that they've been chasing for as long as they had separated them from most Americans, from Main Street America, from suburban America, from people who used to be their most reliable voters?
Yes, and the bottom line, as you well know, is many believe that America was coming their way on the pro-life side. And I have to say that is not the case. In fact, there's a backlash against that school of thought when it comes down to it. And it was really felt in the last election. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what is at stake here? The Republicans believe that they want to favor a morally elite group in this country who have their own point of view generated by religious belief and other things, to the exclusion of the majority who believe that personal freedom is much more important, and a very difficult question. When does life begin? That decision, they think, needs to be made primarily by the woman, her doctor, her family, and her conscience. And I think that is the dominant feeling across America. And the Dobbs decision really brought it to the fore. We are going to have to deal with this in so many different ways. I was with the group, a large group, witnessing the president signing the Respect for Marriage Act. Another indication. Thank goodness a few Republicans stood up with us, and I want to give them credit, like Susan Collins and Rob Portman. But it was largely a Democratic-driven issue. Tammy Baldwin and Kirsten Sinema, who is now on the independent status, played a very, very critical role in reaching that point. But it just says that we see a different view of America. We are a party of inclusion, a party of diversity. We reflect what America is all about.
Yeah, so you can see they're working on a lot of different things here before the end of the year. Also, child tax credits could be revived as Biden considers accepting work requirements. So, again, Democrats may have to accept a work requirement, an income requirement, to get a deal done with Republicans here. Now, I'm also seeing some articles here that says IRS funding child tax credits will be top issues in 2023. So I'm not entirely sure. They could actually, it looks like they could fund the child tax credits here next year as well. They're going to try to do it before the end of the year, but divided government is likely to make for a slower year on tax policy in 2023, as the GOP House warns that it wants to go after the IRS and basically kind of defund the IRS and get rid of that 87,000 IRS agents that were added in there, get rid of them. They do need a lot of them to at least answer the phones, because God, try to get an IRS agent on the phone. It's a nightmare. Just like, please answer the phone, please. Yeah, it involves training thousands of new workers. They say some to perform complicated new audits, but you got to at least answer the phone. It's just a nightmare. Yeah, and to get people's tax returns back. Backlog of tax returns finally cleared. Millions of people still waiting on their refunds. So it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because if people are waiting on their money or can't get a hold of an IRS agent, you know, they kind of need some people there, right? Unprocessed tax returns in the IRS inbox have been a problem since 2020, since the pandemic. So I'll keep you up to date here on both of those things, some hot button issues. And if they can pass the child tax credits, that can mean more money for, you know, like 60 million children, 40 plus million families, up to $3,000 to $3,600.
Hi there.
All right, I got my special guest here for the trivia question.
Hi.
Yeah.
My name's Julia. Where am I going?
All right, stay down here, buddy, so we can see you.
Then I will just see my hair.
Yeah, we want to be able to see you. All right. Tell them what you've been up to lately. What have you?
Hey, Daddy!
What have you been up to lately?
Hey, Daddy! You're poopy.
Yeah, what have you been up to lately? Hey, can you tell everybody that you got to see Santa?
Yes. At Crane
At Crane X, yeah.
and your head, Daddy.
And what did you tell Santa?
We're moving the
What did you tell Santa?
I did that. It was gonna be good.
You told Santa you were going to be good, huh? Have you been good?
It's just
You
good
have?
after red nose, thank you. Has a very tiny nose.
Let's see his nose.
Good after red nose, thank you. Has a very tiny nose. Then he never saw him.
All right, so listen, Julian, we're doing a contest here where we're giving away money to people, and if they can guess the answer correctly, they could win money. And the way it works here is I'm going to say a question, and for all the people that watch our YouTube show, so if you guess the answer correctly, you'll be entered into the pool of people who have guessed correctly. From there, we will have a few winners picked at random.
I tried it. I dropped
This is what it's like having a 4-year-old all day long.
No, don't let me go.
To be picked. And you'll know you won because I will heart your comment and tell you you are a winner generally a few days after the trivia question. Okay, so today's trivia question is we're going to try to do one question every day until Christmas, okay? Okay, so here we go. Today's trivia question is, what beloved Christmas movie was a flop when it was first released? What beloved Christmas movie was a flop when it was first released?
Rudolph?
I don't know. Is that your guess?
Yep.
Well, if anybody has a guess, feel free to leave a comment down below. That's all you have to do to guess. It's completely free to guess.
And say 1, 2, 3.
All you got to do to guess is leave your answer down below in the comments.
And then you go 0, 0, 1, 1. T, T, T.
Yeah, so
if you need to call the police or the fire truck or the ambulance, let's go 911.
That's correct. Good job, buddy. All right, so yeah, that'll be today's trivia question. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will keep you up to date here. This is what it's like all day long here. It's impossible to get anything done here. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll keep you up to date. Thanks for watching, guys. What do you say next? Click here to watch our newest video next.
Hey, you made me do it.
All right, you do it.
Click right here to watch our video next. You in next video. Bye.
Bye-bye. We love you.
We love you too. Bye.